Hey y'all, it's Kate. In this video, I'm going to analyze Francisco S. Stork's young adult novel Marcelo in the Real World for my multimodal project, Turning the Book on Its Head. Marcelo in the Real World follows 17-year-old Marcelo Sandoval, who has a rare autism-like condition that involves hearing music only he alone can hear. At the start of the summer, prior to his senior year, his father gives him the following ultimatum: either work at the law firm this summer and get to choose where he will spend his senior year, or work with Patterson's equine therapy horses for the summer and be forced to attend the local public school for his last year. His father takes this opportunity to challenge Marcelo to take part in the quote-unquote real world, but is revealed to Marcelo is the adversity and prejudice that plagues his new and unfamiliar out-of-tune world. For many of us, the idea of having to join the real world can be utterly terrifying. What's so interesting about Marcelo in the real world is that many of us are able to relate to Marcelo and his fears, while the novel also provides an insider's perspective on people with disabilities and how they both react to and are received by the real world. Stork's novel, in particular, is intriguing because it portrays the single stories that are often imposed on individuals with disabilities, but ultimately resists these single stories by Marcelo not conforming to those expectations and being more than just his disability. To better organize my argument, I divided the page into two parts, similar to how Marcelo is initially divided between the two worlds. I will start off by focusing on the top half of the image. Marcelo is forced to enter the real world by his father Arturo, who claims, "There is a life out there that is healthy and normal that you need to be a part of." This is how Marcelo is first introduced to the real world. However, Arturo is only acquainting him with a small fraction of the real world. His own experiences are limited, so Arturo doesn't have a broad view either. Don't get me wrong, Arturo lives in a dog-eat-dog world, but lawyers are a different breed. Arturo doesn't believe Patterson can provide Marcelo with all the tools he needs to survive in this harsh world. He feels Patterson provides its students with an unrealistic worldview by shielding them too much and allowing them to live within a bubble. We know based on Marcelo's actions behaviors that this is not true, and that Arturo may be the one living in a bubble. Ironically, by attempting to get Marcelo to assimilate to what he considers the real world, also known as the mailroom, Arturo is essentially constructing another bubble of his own for Marcelo. I represented this with the single narrow lane Marcelo is confined to. By Arturo confining Marcelo to the mailroom, he is allowing Marcelo to simply adjust his routine and easily become comfortable in the mailroom, while remaining mostly separate from other people in the office. Had Marcelo not decided to push his own limits, there could have been little change to his comfort lane, and he would have been on the straight and narrow to spending his senior year at Patterson and getting what he wanted. What Arturo doesn't realize is that Marcelo is more ready for the real world than he could have ever anticipated. Additionally, there is the recurring theme of normal and normality. What is or isn't considered normal, and who has the authority to define normality? These questions present a much larger challenge for Marcelo, as seen in the following quote. Arturo is basically asking me to pretend that I am normal, according to his definition, for 3 months. This is an impossible task, especially since it is difficult for me to pretend that I am not normal. He first calls into question who are the ones deciding what is and isn't normal. Marcelo directly questions Arturo's ability to define normal, because as far as Marcelo is concerned, he is normal. To take it a step further, Marcelo is questioning what normal even is, and how Arturo himself is defining it. The behaviors and actions Marcelo considers normal may not be the same as what Arturo considers normal, or anyone else for that matter. Basically, there is no universal definition or guideline as to what is normal. This works to Marcelo's advantage because he doesn't ever view himself as any different from anyone else. The real world Marcelo is exposed to is a world full of labels and stereotypes. To start off with, the real world attempts to fit Marcelo into an incorrectly labeled box by defining him as cognitively disabled and not normal. Such overarching terms exist on a broad spectrum and function as a tool to belittle the person they are imposed on. Marcelo hears his father refer to him as having a cognitive disability and contemplates the following. The term cognitive disability implies that there is something wrong with the way I think or with the way I perceive reality. Later on, he goes on to say, explanations about my condition are based on the assumption that there is something wrong with the way I am. Such broad terms work to categorize a wide variety of people with vastly different disabilities into a single category and has developed a negative connotation that further weighs on those who have been labeled as such. From this extensive group, stereotypes form and emerge as representation and standards for the diverse community. Marcelo in particular has to endure slander such as the following. What world do you live in? You're an idiot. As well as, you're one misguided retard. and an imbecile. Others made less direct but not less insulting remarks such as, aren't you supposed to be slow or something? Like many offenders, those insulting Marcelo view his cognitive disability as being synonymous with a lack of intelligence. Be that as it may, Marcelo challenges these labels and stereotypes by refusing to accept these insults at face value. Marcelo says it best himself. I view myself as different in the way I think, talk, and act, but not as someone who is ill or abnormal. There is nothing actually wrong with Marcelo, as they would say. He is just a little different from everyone else. But I could argue that we're all a little different from everyone else. No one can be easily classified into simple defined categories. That's what makes us all human. To bring it all together, there is a sign simply labeled Real World. It is old, beat up, and obviously falling apart. This is to say that the idea we have of the real world is cracking under pressure. The idea is obsolete. It doesn't even exist. The idea we have of the real world is built on the labels, stereotypes, and false expectations we constructed. We can't fit our world into a neatly labeled box. By the quote-unquote real world attempting to conform to the single story and being unable to do so, it acts as a counter-story. When you look at the image from a different point of view, similar to how Marcelo changes his tune towards his new world, you can have a whole new outlook on the world and hear a new beat. As we progress through the novel, Marcelo learns to embrace what we can consider to be his own real world. I can see how many may see the ending of the novel as problematic because it implies a happy ending. However, I believe it implies hope. Marcelo's journey up until this point has not been one full of rainbows and butterflies by any means, and there aren't any guaranteed in his future either. Marcelo has had to face the ugly truths of prejudice, discrimination, and deceit, but he has had to learn that he too contributes to the ugliness of the world. Marcelo has been made aware of the hurt he has also caused. All I can think of now is that it isn't right for me to be unaware of the pain, including the pain I inflicted on others. Only how is it possible to live without either being numb to it or overwhelmed by it? I think this is something we all must come to terms with and ask ourselves. But we must also learn to come to cope with it like Marcelo. We all have ugly parts. How do we live with all the suffering? We see our ugly parts and we are able to forgive, love kindness, walk humbly. What Marcelo has found through his introduction to the real world is not a perfect world, but the good and the bad that exists within it. Now that he's aware of the realities of the world, he also understands that there is no such thing as the real world. The best way to describe our world is that we all live in our own little worlds, and they overlap, making up the world we live in today. No people experience it the same way, but it will take all of us to mend the pain that we have inflicted. For Marcelo, he has come to embrace what makes up his world and the things that he enjoys in life. His world involves his interests such as religion and music, and the things he enjoys like his pet Namu, as well as his dream to become a registered nurse and help other children with disabilities through his own equine program. This is his small world, and it's only a fraction of the larger world we all experience together. Marcelo now recognizes that he is a part of the world whether he likes it or not. As Marcelo says, we will all have to figure it out together. There is no perfect answer for our world, but it takes all of us. I think his motto says it best, doing what I can to lessen the hurt in the world. Marcelo sees the world for what it is, a place full of diverse people, each living their own lives, with everyone contributing to the good and the bad. For this reason, Marcelo in the real world acts as a counter-story, not just for individuals with disabilities, but also for our own outlook of our own world. We are given the opportunity to try and understand what it's like for individuals with disabilities and to break down our own stereotypes. We are also able to open our own eyes to the realities of our world and that it's not the picture-perfect place we like to pretend that it is, and that it's not going to fix itself. It's going to take each and every one of us to heal the hurt we've all helped to contribute. To be totally honest with you, I found this project difficult. I already struggle sometimes with expressing myself anyway, so to translate my argument into a visual format presented quite the challenge. I didn't want to downplay Marcelo's journey and struggles. To use a more mainstream term, I didn't want it to come off as a first world problem. This was a challenge to Marcelo, and he had to face harsher moments of adversity than I ever have in my life. So it's not like his story wasn't important, had a large impact. I just didn't know how to initially frame my argument in the direction I wanted to focus on and go in without undermining the importance of what Stark was trying to convey. However, as I dug deeper into the novel, I noticed this recurring theme of labels and how we use them in our language. We use labels all the time. Sometimes we call our friends a name as a joke, on a superficial level. In the novel, however, Marcel was referred to things as such as cognitively disabled, idiot, or retard. Some of these are words even some of us have been guilty of using in a joking manner, but the impact they have now has changed. I just thought this idea of labels was interesting because we're constantly surrounded by them. I now see the greater importance of labels and that the message behind them doesn't change. The hurt you cause is always there. I think for me, thinking of the novel Marcelo in the Real World through the ideas of labels has brought to my attention that you should never label someone and that you should never let someone label you.